At the head of every 100 prisoners walked one man with a single eye, leading 99 men who could no longer see the road. One eye for every 100 prisoners, 99 men walking behind him in total darkness. These were not ordinary captives. They were Bulgarian soldiers taken by the forces of the Byzantine Emperor Basil II in 1014. A column of prisoners stretched across the open country, men unable to see the path and dependent on the one guide left at the head of each group. How does one man lead 99 others who cannot see a single step ahead? In the Byzantine narrative, the prisoners themselves became the image of defeat returning to Samuel. The prisoners eventually reach Samuel in a scene later chroniclers connected to the final days of his life. Can a single sight bring down a ruler? The returning prisoners carried no weapons. Their condition was itself the catastrophe placed before Samuel. Skylitzis writes that Samuel collapsed when he saw them and died 2 days later, on October 6, 1014. Could one sight alone have broken a ruler who had survived decades of war? Samuel died, but the war did not end with him. The Battle of Kleidion ended in Byzantine victory and the capture of many Bulgarian soldiers. But the account of what followed became more famous than the victory itself. What happened to Basil II's prisoners after Kleidion? According to the Byzantine account, Basil ordered the prisoners blinded and divided into groups of 100, leaving one man in each group with a single eye. The decision attributed to Basil transformed the prisoners into a living image of defeat, sent back toward their ruler. Was this calculated warfare or cruelty beyond any military necessity? But before judging the decision, one question remains. How much of this account can history actually prove? The best-known version of the story was written decades after the battle. So what do the oldest surviving accounts actually establish? Was this mass blinding recorded history, or a legend built around Basil's victory? The detailed version of the episode survives in texts written well after the events of 1014. That leaves historians with an important distinction. The episode may have a historical core, while its numbers and precise details remain harder to verify. Did the chroniclers preserve the event, or enlarge it into the image history remembers? Doubt does not necessarily erase the event. It shifts the debate toward the scale, the numbers, and how systematic the episode may have been. Some accounts give enormous totals. Modern historical scrutiny asks whether those figures can be taken literally. Why does one account give 15,000 prisoners, while other traditions give different numbers? The surviving sources do not agree on how many Bulgarian prisoners were captured and blinded. When numbers diverge across chronicles, historians must separate what is independently supported from what may have grown through repetition. What can the sources actually prove, and where does the legend begin? Whatever the final number, the account does not describe one guide leading an entire army. It describes one one-eyed guide for every group of 100. Why was one prisoner in every 100 left with a single eye? One man could see the road. 99 men followed behind him. According to the account, each group of 100 prisoners was given a one-eyed guide to lead the other 99 back to Samuel. He was not guiding an entire army. He was guiding one group in which no other prisoner could see the path ahead. Was the remaining eye an act of necessity, or another part of the punishment? Samuel's death did not close the war. It opened its final chapter. The death of a ruler can look like the end of a war. In Bulgaria, it was not. Samuel was dead. So why did the war continue? The familiar version of the story often makes Kleidion appear to have ended Bulgarian resistance immediately. not. After Samuel's death, Bulgaria continued fighting for another 4 years, until 1018. What kept the resistance alive after the loss of its ruler and the disaster at Kleidion? The survival of that resistance complicates any simple claim that terror alone decided the war. Should a ruler be measured by the territory he conquered, or by what he was willing to do to the defeated? How did the victor treat the prisoners who survived? The controversy surrounding Kleidion does not end with the battle. It centers on what the sources say was done to the captives afterward. Their fate became part of the political and psychological impact of the war, not merely another consequence of defeat. When the battle is already won, what does blinding the prisoners afterward become? Strategy or brutality? Yet the name most closely associated with this story, the Bulgar-Slayer, was not securely documented as Basil's own contemporary title. Long after Basil died, one title began to redefine how later generations remembered him. He was not known by this title during his lifetime. Later, it came to define him. Bulgar-Slayer, Bulgaroktonos, does not appear as an established epithet in sources contemporary with Basil. Its documented prominence belongs to a later Byzantine period. Later Byzantine memory compressed a long reign and decades of warfare into one brutal identity, the emperor who destroyed Bulgaria. Did the title preserve the real Basil, or did later history create the ruler it wanted to remember? The sources may disagree over the number, but the image survived. One man with a single eye, leading 99 prisoners who could no longer see the road.